friend of mine once said, you need to be the oak tree, not the thundercloud.
Hmm.
Life, wife, kids, work, everything else around you can, have blue skies or thunderstorms or hail or whatever. And you just kind of need to be the oak tree that's centered. Right. And
Hmm.
Lord knows I do my best to do that. And I'm imperfect. And, sometimes I don't show up as my best, but I do my best to stay rooted in, provide a level of certainty that just calms
Mm.
things. Right.
Mm.
So,
What is up, my friends? Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own craft of fatherhood. This is your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 13 to 20, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 21st year of marriage. So yes, I am in the thick of it. I am in this with you, and I am working daily to rebel against the low expectations set for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. The role of the father is to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend, Eric Collins. He is a husband, a father, a community servant, strategic business owner, and overall a highly intentional man, really working to serve and care for all that has been placed in his care. I greatly enjoyed this conversation. As I reflect, he carries a humble confidence that I both admire and respect. Enjoy meeting my friend, Eric. Hi, my friends. I'm stoked for you to meet my friend, Eric Collins. Eric, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. How you feeling today?
feeling great. How you doing, Ned? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing great now that my computer's working, ready to talk fatherhood with you. Let's go. So first question right out the gate, Eric, is how old do you find yourself today?
Let's see, maturity, 17, mentally, solid 20s, physically, 80, something like that. My doctor says I've got the spine of a 90-year-old, which is lovely. So,
So what are you doing for that spine?
in my younger years, I was very adventurous and made some poor life decisions and, broke my neck in 5 places. So,
Holy
I've had
smokes.
I had 2 spinal fusions. You can kind of see them. They look like shark gills, and,
Oh, gnarly.
yeah. So I had a 50-50 chance to survive. And, by the grace of God, he had, plans for me and, don't always know what those are at the time, but,
Hmm.
yeah. So it ended up going remarkably well. And then I found out in 2014 when one of my companies was taking off like a rocket that, I just happened to go into the surgeon and say, "Hey, you mind checking on this? Because I guess you're supposed to get checked
Hmm.
every once in a while." And he said, "Yeah, your spine looks like Swiss cheese. You got big holes,
Whoa.
and the screws have fallen out and they're floating around in your neck." So,
Whoa.
that was interesting. And then I think it was like a day or two later, I was in the hospital getting my second fusion. So, and then this time it looks like it works out great. So,
Wow. Wow. Gnarly. Dude, God is good. That's heavy. How many years you been married, Eric?
let's see, 2013, so 12 and a half.
12 and a half. Okay. Awesome. And so shoot, first year into marriage or like at your 1 year anniversary, you're going in for this next surgery, probably pretty gnarly for your wife.
Yeah, we had been together since end of 2007. So
Okay.
certainly, we had been with each other for a while. Um, but yeah, any time was not a good time. But yeah, she stepped up. My mother, my sister, surrounded by loved ones. So it was nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then how many kiddos do you guys have?
I got 2 boys, Eric Michael Collins II and Logan Collins. And it was
How old
always
are
a
they?
dream of mine since I was a kid because I'm a bit of a nerd.
Mm.
I always wanted to have Eric Michael Collins II because then it's E equals MC squared. So,
That's awesome. So you had the plan for your kid's name well before. I mean, you show up to
oh, well,
your when did you break this? When did you break this to your wife? Like, I already got the name. Was this like first date? You kind of let her know, or when did you let her know about this?
it was probably like the second or third, something like that. But, I put plenty of pressure on her because if you track all the way over the family tree, I'm the last male Collins for like, I don't know how
Okay.
many generations. So it was like every family get together, every time I saw my dad, everything like, hey, are you having any boys? What's going on? Like, are you, and so I told her, put some pressure on her, and she's like, I don't think that I'm the one that determines that. So, you know, but it all worked out.
But you got your MC squared, and you got your boy, and you continue on this family legacy. That's awesome. All right, where do you guys live? Where do you guys do life?
We live in Orange County, California. I was born here, bounced around, growing up, lived overseas for a bit, and she's lived here her whole life. And
Okay.
so we've been in Irvine for the past, I think, like 12, 13 years. And it's nice, it's boring, and good little community that we have, especially tied to the school that my kids go to. So
Yeah, awesome. And that's really, I mean, we've been doing some work together, and I'll bring this up in a moment, but you and the stuff you do with your kids' school really was like what triggered me to want to just talk more fatherhood with you. But before we get into some of those things, last time we were on a call, we were talking about some financial things, as that is something that you help support me in, and you were on a boat. You were on a boat, what, Dana Point? Where were you at? Like the harbor somewhere.
downtown San Diego,
Okay, that's right.
at
That's right.
Marriott.
Yep, yep. You were downtown San Diego. Okay, so I was like, is this a background? But then it was clearly not a background. So I love and hate the question, what do you do for a living? Because most of us men use it as like the primary identity piece for ourselves to like size each other up and who am I, which I don't know that it
Mhm.
necessarily defines us, but we do get to provide value out in the world by doing work. It's part of our calling. So with that being said, what is it that you do for a living to provide value out in the world?
So I am a business owner, to simply put it. I've owned a variety of different businesses throughout the years. Self-employed since I was 18, and at present, my primary focus is working with my partners at two different firms, Relentac CPAs and Advisors. I'm a senior partner, and then also a charitable bank, which is a tax strategy that helps high income, high net worth individuals um, protect more of their cash by reducing their tax liability and a number of other different things. And then I also own a software company named Gold and a couple of other ventures.
Love it. If people wanted to learn more about what you do as a tax strategist, where would they go to learn more about this?
Charitablebank.com would be the
Okay.
best spot, or relentax.com. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Love it.
not.
So I had gotten connected just as like just to throw it out there, I my business has been growing. Obviously, that means our income has been growing over the last decade. I've been through 3 CPAs. I was connected with Jeff, one of your business partners, through a Rise Up Kings mastermind call that I was on. I'm like, okay, this guy sounds legit. And so I got linked up with him 4 or 5 years ago, and it game changed like my understanding. The difference, I don't think people realize, and we don't got to get into this, it's not a business podcast, but what people don't realize is the difference between a CPA and somebody who kind of just like knows how to fill in the boxes, and then somebody who's actually a tax strategist to help you understand how to, you know, uh, legally maximize your income and have more to, for me, impact the kingdom in a greater way. So, anyways, love what you guys do. Grateful for it. Now, right out the gate, one of the things that had led me to want to talk to you is you shared something unique you were doing, I believe, with like kids fundraiser or something like this at your school.
Yeah,
Do you recall that conversation?
I do.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, because I just loved your involvement at the school. And I'd love for people to hear that. One, because I want dads to be more involved, and then like, be creative. So what are the things that you do at the kids' school?
Yeah, so one of my sons attends Woodbury Elementary School in Irvine, California, and when I'll give you a little backstory if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Um, so I had a core group of friends in a couple different groups, right? And as I grew older, I decided to kind of raise my standards and change how I showed up in the world.
Hmm.
A couple of those ways was not drinking. Other ways was, not being in situations where I maybe called to defend a friend, get a fight or something.
Mm.
I didn't want to be in environments that weren't serving my outcomes. And then
Hmm.
there's some other friends that weren't quite as honest as I would have liked. So that created problems in personal or business. And then other friends moved away. So I found that my like core pool of friends was diminishing.
Hmm.
And so then I wanted to, make some new friends, meet some new people. And my wife said, "Hey, there's this group at the elementary school called Dad's Club." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And I'm like, of course, my first response was like, "I don't have time for that, whatever." And they were like, "Why don't you just go and see how you can help out? Like they always need volunteers for events. They raise money for the school. Like maybe you would have fun." So I'm like, "Oh, meet some people." I was like, "Okay." So I show up and just kind of being quiet, hanging out, and one thing led to another. I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. This is kind of neat, right?" Because all the guys are horsing around with each other and you know joking, whatever. And then when it came time to actually do things, they were getting real results for the school. So the events that are put on by the school through the PTA are actually done by the Dads Club, almost all of them. And so the Dads
That's
Club
rad.
started. Yeah, the Dads Club started as an offshoot just because they needed people to lift stuff. And they were like, well,
Mm.
let's get a bunch of dads together and do the heavy lifting or painting or stuff that other people don't want to do. And then that's just kind of how it grew. And I think it started like 20 years ago. And so when I was doing it, I started to just plug in here and there and showing up and volunteering however I could. And then I got asked to co-chair a Halloween maze. So the
Mm.
Halloween maze every year has about 1,000 to 1,600 people that show up, and the line is
Wow.
down the street, past the school, down the street. And it was really exciting. So I got to put some creative feedback in there. And then, you know, a lot of times people don't raise their hand, especially if they're kind of new volunteers, they don't want
Hmm.
to step up. So I was like, well, how bad could it be? I've failed at plenty of other things in my life. So I volunteered to be the chairman of the maze the next year. And then every year after that, I kept doing it, and nobody else seems to want to do it, or they just keep asking me to do it. So I think I've done it like 4 or 5 years in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, every year we break our, cash flow and, net profit goals for the event. And it's been a lot of fun because kids go through it. It's a great community building activity. Uh, kids go through it. They get to have fun. The sixth graders get to volunteer in the maze. So every year I go through and, you know, uh, pick an overall theme. And then we have like 16 different rooms inside of it where the maze
Wow.
goes through this whole courtyard. So every different room is a different theme. So we've had like, gold mining Wild West. We've had aliens. We've had, all kinds of stuff. Apocalypse was the last one. And it's great to see, you know, how to be a better leader because these people are
Hmm.
volunteers.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
it's
You
been
don't.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, is this school a Christian school, private school, charter school? What's the history, the background of the
Pu-
school?
Public school, the previous principal and current principal have been very gracious in allowing us to do this because they see how much it helps the community, gets parents
Uh,
involved. And I think I don't know, a couple $100,000 we raised for the school between all the different events that we help support. So we're
wow.
told regularly by other schools that there is no other, um, there's nothing else like this anywhere that people
Hmm.
know of.
How how many dudes are in Dad's club right now, roughly?
80 something.
Holy smokes! How
So
many kids go to
I
this school?
think like 1,000.
Wow. 10%
Yeah.
of dads are engaged in leading, serving at the school. Man, I would love, I mean, this sounds like one of those things you'd want to do like a 50-year study on the kids who come out of this school, the impact. Cause I mean, like, I'll just give you a flip side. My son was out of school. It was a charter school. I want to say he was like third or fourth grade. And
Mhm.
he was getting in trouble at school because he was getting his sister was getting bullied. And so he was protecting his twin sister. And when I showed up, to the parent interview, something that I realized was like, one, I was the only dad, and then two, the only other male presence on the school campus was the janitor, which great, right? I think that janitors can be a great impact to the students and a nice role model. But our kids really need healthy role models, and there's, I think a lot of men have, because of job and career, et cetera, have disconnected themselves from the day-to-day leadership of kids, unless it's coaching, right? Unless it's coaching. Um, so anyways, I absolutely love that. And I just want to encourage dads listening. Like, what if you went and said, hey, me and some dads want to help support the school and raise some money? I mean, that's usually the moms doing that, which is fantastic. Moms are incredible. But what an opportunity to serve and not just like stack chairs. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's
Yeah.
how it
Yeah.
started, but there's way more going on with Dad's Club.
It doesn't have to be anything big like the maze, right? The maze didn't start off. I've
Right. Right.
for good or bad, I've taken it to another level. That's just kind of my nature. Um, and it can start. What are you gonna do? Um, you could start off anywhere, right? Like, so we have a carnival that's coming up, which is a very big one, right?
Hmm.
We have tons of vendors. They bring in stuff, and we put on this huge carnival for all the kids. But we do jogathon, we do ice cream social, we do boys night where,
Mm.
we put on and talk about, like, fifth grade. We bring in a vendor, they talk about, bodies and all that stuff. Um, and so we do family fun night, which is like bingo, where you raffle
Mm.
off prizes and you do bingo and fun stuff and little games. So there's tons of different ways that you can put on events. Some of them are big, some of them are
Yeah.
small. Like, one of them is just like a coffee welcome. So we just have coffee and then, welcome parents when they come, and we do an open house at the school like the first day or week, have the parents come over, and then we intentionally, funnel's not the right word, but I guess it is, get them into where they're registering for the PTA. We have the highest PTA enrollment in I don't know. It's got to be Irvine, if not the state of California. So it's we've put some great systems in place to where, you meet the parents, right? Step one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Step two, then see if you can get them to attend anything. Then get them to be at the PTA member. Then get them to maybe volunteer for 1 hour. Just show up for 1 hour. That's all we want. Don't
Hmm.
do anything else. Show up for 1 hour. See how you feel, right? And then. So
But then do you find that because it sounds like if you've been doing this 5 years and just even it sounds like this is a group of people that you enjoy doing life with, and it becomes not just an hour of volunteering, but like you've made great friends through being a part of this the last several years.
no, I've made some fantastic friends. There's some guys that I really respect, and it's been wonderful to, have that camaraderie and be of service and help people that they really can't do anything back for you, right?
Yeah,
In essence of the school. So that's been wonderful, and it's not been without its trials.
for sure.
There are people that have personality conflicts. There are people that on, say, the PTA, the board, that, make me want to dig holes and throw them in it, but it's like, what are you going to do? You have to work through that
Right.
kind of
That's
stuff,
life.
and remember that it's about the kids, not your ego, and try and find a
Mhm.
common ground. So
Yeah, Eric, I think this is huge. I think, and we can move on to some other things, but I think that so many of us men are looking for like, what's my career? What's my identity? If I'm a churchgoer, how do I do something for the kingdom and impact and put it's like I'm wearing a Jesus hat right now. It's like we want to put labels on things a lot. And I think, dude, if you just first love and serve your family and then do something like this, where you're loving and serving your community through your kids' school and having fathers engaged, man, I just think there's a huge opportunity for this, for men to lead something like this. So kudos, dude. I love what you're doing. Um,
thanks.
love what you're doing over there. Um, okay, in your opinion, what is the role of the father?
Boy, that's a tough one. Friend of mine once said, you need to be the oak tree, not the thundercloud.
Mm,
Life, uh, you know, wife, kids, work, everything else around you can, have blue skies or thunderstorms or hail or whatever, and you just kind of need to be the oak tree that's centered, right? And
hmm
Lord knows I do my best to do that, and I'm imperfect, and Sometimes I don't show up as my best, but I do my best to stay rooted in, you know, provide a level of certainty that just calms
Mm,
things, right?
mm,
So that's number one on, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to have certainty. If you don't, then the wife gets unhappy, the kids get unhappy. A lot of, I think, behavioral issues with kids comes from a lack of certainty. Um, they may not like some things that you do, discipline, chores, whatever the case may be,
mhm,
but there's a comfort to them having predictability. When they don't have predictability, because I was
mm,
abused, when you don't have predictability, then you're just living in a constant state of uncertainty and anxiety. And
mm.
that's not a good way to live. So like every morning when I wake up, hug both of my kids, let's have a great day. They come downstairs, before they leave. I've made breakfast every day for 9 years, I think, almost, unless we ate
Let's go.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I just told them, I said, look, your first meal of the day is going to set the tone and you're going to make healthy
Mm,
decisions starting with this meal. And your brain, I call it brain food. Your brain food is going to be what encourages you to have hormonally balanced, you know, blood glucose and everything throughout the morning. You're going to feel better by starting with that instead of sugar pops or whatever the heck, is people are buying. Um, giving them a hug and kiss before they say goodbye. Just baking in, whether they like it or not, they're going to bed within a 15-minute window. My wife doesn't like as much structure sometimes as I put into things, but I'm like, look, they're going to bed at this time, they're waking up at this time, they're doing, this, and I didn't have as much of that in my life, either from the abusive
mm,
stepfather or from when my mother was single. Um, and so then just knowing the pretty much what to expect from me, even when it comes to me getting upset. Normally I don't fly off the handle.
mm,
I used to in the past a little too much, but then it's like I'm really big on outcomes and I'm really big on sensory acuity and okay, is what I'm doing effective? And
mhm,
my son and I had a talk about strategies that didn't work, like spanking, right? And so we had to
mhm.
talk about that. And he's like, oh, I went to SeaWorld and you spanked me and da da da. And I'm like, you don't remember all the rest of that? Where you pitched a fit and like wouldn't get off the ground. And then I picked you up and you broke my back. Literally, I drove home almost in tears. My back was destroyed. Um, and so, and then he's like, oh, okay, yeah. All right. That makes sense. I said, so there's positive things where they will, yeah, I mean that's probably by far number one is just certainty and love, that the kids need to have in their life.
Hmm. Yeah. So, bro, first off, you're a great dude. You're a really intentional
Oh,
dad.
thanks,
I
bud.
don't think
You
dad's heard
too.
enough. Yeah, no, but eh, the things that you're sharing are massive, right? Like the I made breakfast every day for 9 years. Like nobody sees that, right? Like your wife and kids see it great. They're not going to appreciate it. Maybe your wife does, but kids aren't going to appreciate it till their dads one day. But what's interesting is that you took your instability as a kid, right? And even in your, filling out the Google form, you had said something to the extent of there was a lack of discipline in your
Yeah.
world growing up. And
Mhm.
what's interesting is like you're implementing some very simple, right? Simple but hard, right? Getting your kids in bed at the same time within 15 minutes, like that crap ain't easy. Making breakfast every day, you're designing your life to be that guy, right? Which, you're a business owner and that comes with its own stressors of like you don't clock in at 8 and clock out at 4 typically, right? But you've designed your life to serve, and here's the word you used, you have some outcomes that are important to you. And you even said this as you were teeing up the conversation around the school of why you got involved there. How did you decide the outcomes that were important to you so that then you could create the certainty and the expectations for yourself? So, how did you decide the outcomes you wanted?
For my kids or the
Life,
maze or life.
just like, yeah, life.
I mean, I have it right here. I do a fair amount of writing,
Hmm.
not every morning, but most mornings. And that usually I find that, at least 2 times a year, if not 3 or 4, I kinda sit down and I do these little, wheel of life. I'm sure you've seen it. where you kind of show the
Uh-huh.
void, the voids in different aspects of your life. Try and be as honest with yourself as you can, and then I figure out what my outcomes are, and I say okay, and because you need to consciously prioritize them. If you don't, life will do it for you, and normally it doesn't work out so well. So I'll sit there and say I'm not gonna pretend like my number one outcome is my family. It's not. It's money. And people think like you have to have harmony in like because you put one outcome above another, that's like somehow wrong. Well, I don't look at it that way. I look at it more from like a physics, scientific cause and effect, right? So if I'm at cause, I can control my destiny. If I'm at effect, I'm a victim. So if I'm at cause, I'm
Mm,
taking personal responsibility. Well, my wife does not like it if, the business doesn't have predictable cash flow, right? She's not involved in any of my companies. That was a conscious and deliberate decision I can talk about later. But,
mhm.
I do still share things with her. And it's like sometimes as a business owner, you don't get paid for a few months because you're like, hey, I got to focus on delivery or this or
Right.
that, right?
Right.
And so it's just the ups and downs. It's like, especially with the tax industry, it's seasonal, right? End of year, spring, fall. Um, so then every once in a while she'll ask me and yeah, that's a tangent. So for my outcomes, I try and be very deliberate in doing more than just goal setting, right? So I'm doing
Mm,
something rooted to numbers if possible.
mm.
Um, and
'Cause it's
then
measurable?
yeah, so doing something rooted to numbers, and then saying, okay, this is my outcome. What strategies do I need, or what cause do I need to be at, or tactics to get to that outcome?
Right.
What behaviors do I need to do? What activities, etc. And then work it backwards. I find that's a heck of a lot easier.
How
Um,
how often are you looking at that? So I know you said you kinda write every day, but how often are you looking at this wheel? And maybe it's kind of like pillars, right? Faith, family, fitness, finance, freedom, fun, whatever,
mhm,
right? It's these kind of
mhm.
components to it. How often are you sitting down and reviewing that?
I don't review it. So
Oh,
I only use the wheel when I'm kind of getting clarity or discovery, right, on my
okay.
situation or where I'm at to be objective. And once I'm kind of objective, then I go, okay, let me compare the voids to the outcomes
Mm,
that I want to do. Once I have the outcomes that are prioritized, then I'm in action mode. Um, I don't really review my outcomes all the time because normally I'll keep it to where, the top 3 to 5 are top of mind. The rest of them,
mhm,
it's like, okay, those will happen if they happen, and that would be lovely, but I need to go and make sure I achieve these things. And they're not all the same, right? So like, one of my outcomes was as we were talking about with friends, right? Is to have different types of friends be of service in different ways. Well, I love
mhm.
fishing. I wanted a boat. And that's a great way for me to connect with people a lot more. Like when you're trapped at sea, 80 miles offshore, you're gonna have some talks, you're gonna have
Yeah,
some fun and um so that was a nice way for me to say, okay, I want this, but I can't have that unless I have these money goals, right?
yeah,
I know that my
yeah,
wife likes gifts. I know that my wife likes trips. She likes certain things, even though she's very modest in a lot of ways. So great. So money makes that happen, right? It's not an accident. And so all those, I want better health. Well, sometimes you need a little bit of money for that, depending on what you want to do, right? Um, so it's not. I don't look for balance or harmony, right? Or sorry, I don't look for balance. I look for harmony. So
I
I
like that.
I don't measure everything equally. Money is a big cause for a lot of the benefits that I have in my life. Um,
Yeah, so harmony, and I guess it's like if I'm gonna journal, most days, and I'm journaling about my life, right? I think that then you're aware of if there's not harmony, those things are probably going to come up. And so, is that true for you? Is that when you're journaling, if there's areas of a lack of harmony, or maybe great harmony, that you're either leaning more into the harmony or realizing where there's a lack, and then being attentive to that? Is that how you utilize journaling at all, or
no, I mean the top two things that I do is basically a brain dump because I
okay?
have so many businesses and things that I'm involved in. It's like it just
Hmm.
feels good for me to purge it out and just get it all out.
Yep.
And then normally in the morning, so I have a more deliberate day and I'm not reacting. I
Mm.
just go through in my mind and I kind of build or invent or create or whatever I need to in my mind. And then I just kind of write out what those steps are going to do. A little bit beyond like planning and preparing. It's almost like doing it in my head before it's happened. And then create that in just kind of a calm. I have my tea, and in a calm, just focus sitting in my lazy boy in my office, and then just kind of write it out and go, okay, this is what I'm going to execute. Because as soon as my morning starts and the kids are going crazy and this is happening, then my phone's ringing and partner needs this and client needs that. It's so easy just to get steered off of the day. And then
Right.
your brain, through ego depletion, the more decisions you make throughout the day, the weaker your brain gets. So by
Mm-hmm.
the time you're like, okay, it's 11 o'clock, I can finally sit down and do what I meant to do, your brain's weaker. And then you're like, God, how do I do this? And then maybe you give up and go to lunch earlier or something. So
Mm.
that's really my focus with writing, is not as much like today I caught a tuna, like a journal. It's so
So I'm going to move away from this in just a minute, but I would love just a
sure.
little additional clarity on this, or maybe hope for guys strategy. Three things that you've said that just kind of light me up are: one, you were talking about certainty, right? So I think most men would love to show up with certainty that their family really trusts that they are the oak tree, right? To use your example, and not the thunderstorm, right? Like, dad's coming home. What kind of mood is he in? Is it a big thunderstorm, small? Did he zap himself from the day and he's going to suck when he gets home? So I think many of us have been in those moments. And so it's like, okay, I'd love the certainty. Then you talked about, you use the word deliberate, like you want to be deliberate with your day, not reactionary. Beautiful. Now, you also mention, like a little bit of you had an uncertain childhood to some degree, just with the things you've alluded to. So, how have you shifted from a unstable dude potentially from growing up to feeling a security in who you are, in your identity, and a confidence? So my question is, if a dude feels like their lack of confidence, lack of stability, how did you get to where you are? Was it a class, a course, a book, a mentor, a what? Like, you've clearly done some work. So if a dude wants to show up more the way that you are, what would be the roadmap you'd give him?
That's a tough one because I don't think I want anybody to take my road.
Hmm.
I've had a lot of pain and failure and in the moment, considering it's suffering until you find the meaning, right? Um,
Hmm.
and so, you know, I believe that sometimes God, taps you on the shoulder, then he kind of lays a feather on you, then he hits you with a brick, then he runs you over with a truck, right? And for the most of my time, the only reason I've changed is because I either got hit with a brick or ran over by a truck.
Hmm.
And it took me in my earlier years, um, more because I was driven by ego and desire to be liked and substance abuse and all that kind of stuff, that it was just not doing what was going to help me to grow as an individual or contribute to the betterment of others, right? The spiritual needs.
Hmm.
And so it was just more pursuit of pleasure rather than my mentor
Hmm.
used to say, like, you have pleasure, happiness, and fulfillment. And over time, I just realized that, man, this just is not working. Um, I had the pleasure of meeting George Carlin one time and hanging out with him for a minute. And then he invited me to his comedy show and like we went. It was amazing. It was awesome. He was such a cool dude. And he said there's two types of people. People who drink and do drugs and it's all fun, right? As an example, it could be anything, right? It could be ice cream. But
Hmm.
people who drink and do drugs was his thing. And then it's all good and very little consequence. He said, but the older you get, it seems to like shift to where you hit this equilibrium where it's not as fun as it was and it doesn't feel good. And
Hmm.
then there's two types of people who get off of that ride, or the ones that it gets worse and worse and the consequences are more and more, and the pleasure from it is less and less.
Hmm.
And so to answer your question, I just got better and better at discipline and realizing that, like, this isn't working.
Hmm.
And I think it gets a little bit easier for guys. Everybody's different. I'm not judging, but I think it's easier when you have a wife and kids because they expect something of you. So you either step
Hmm.
up and you do
Yeah.
what you're expected. and
Yeah.
you have accountability on a very big level. Otherwise you run away. And when that's the case, now it's like, okay, well, I can't do everything I want to do in life. If I'm, doing these unhealthy behaviors.
Hmm.
Therefore, I either make a conscious decision, is this working or not? I changed a bunch of things this year at the beginning of the year. Um, that had a massive impact. And you either listen to your body or the feedback of other people and compare it to your results, or you don't.
I mean, right there. I mean, you just said so many good things. Just to point out a couple. Like, are you listening to your body? So, men, are you listening to your body, and then are you shifting what you're doing to adjust to that? Are you taking the feedback from your wife and your kids, and not just the verbal things that they tell you, but like how are they experiencing you? How do they respond when you show up into a room? So, are you taking that feedback and are you becoming a victim about it? Right? Like, okay, I'm getting you said, I think, hit by a truck. So am I becoming victim on this, or am I taking that feedback as like, is this serving my outcomes that I desire as a man, and making shifts? Um, oh gosh, you did mention mentor. So, in your opinion, if you were talking to a guy and he's just kind of like rocking solo, accountable to no one, what would your feedback be to him as far as having somebody like, what does mentorship look like?
Hmm. So most of the time it's one on one. Sometimes it's, one with a group,
Hmm.
kind of thing. When I was, I lost everything I owned when I was in 20 or 2004, right? And long story, but I was with a friend of mine and we were been best friends for a long time. I had helped him through some of his ups and downs. And we were eating sushi and he's like, God, man, like you're unbearable to be around, like, cause I was just miserable. Right. And, and he's like, are you really that low? And I was like, yes, I am. And he just kind of got it like in that moment, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, he's really in another level of pain. I was. And so from like him to then I started plugging into personal development. I went to a lot of like seminars and workshops, watched The Secret, listen to all these CDs and DVDs and just all this kind of stuff. And then I would just go to different seminars and get plugged into different groups. And I just kept doing that. I think I don't even know how much money I spent, like 700 grand or something over a period of 10 years, maybe more. And just masterminds and, one-on-one and, all kinds of stuff. So it doesn't have to necessarily be just a mentor. It's more like,
Mm-hmm.
who are you surrounding yourself with? Are these people, they don't have to be the same as you. I feel like people get all caught up in, well, we only let 7 and 8 and 9 figure business owners into this mastermind. It's like, dude, the whole saying of like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Maybe you're in the right room. Maybe you should be serving other people. Um, and yeah, you meet people along the way, and
So
I've
it
had all
sounds like,
different types.
yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is it's like there isn't really a secret sauce to it. It's just like, are you a growth-minded person, right? So are you
Yes.
willing to swallow your pride, your ego, and go and learn from other people? And it seems like that's what you've done. And it actually reminds me, so funny, dude, is it's probably a year and a half ago, I was on a call with you, and I'm like, dude, this guy's talking about finances in a way that I've never heard before. And so I asked you, hey, if what's a book, a podcast, or a course that you're like you would take? And you said to me something to the extent of, all right, my friends, you've been hearing me talk about the Genesis program through Rise of Kings, and I am incredibly excited to invite you to it as well as be a part of it. Rise of Kings has helped thousands of men over the last 5 years discover the reality of their identity. And now they have launched the Genesis program, which is for young men ages 13 to 17. And here's the idea. You as a father would take your son to this 2-day event to start to initiate a conversation and an awareness around what it means to be a man. But the conversation would really be between you and your son. And then after the 2-day event, once we expose your sons to the 4 pillars, to what it means to be a man, then we work with you and your son. I'm actually the coach for the mastermind program. You got Mondo Davis, who does the 2-day event. Incredible man, 11 children. He's currently working with his 16-year-old son. I'm working with my 16-year-old son. So you guys, this is fresh. This is real. This matters. So we want to invite you to the 2-day event with you and your son. And then after that, I'll be the coach for the 6-month mastermind, where I'm working with you every 2 weeks. And then I'm working with your sons every 2 weeks, with the idea that we're helping you to really step into what does it look like to help transition your son from a boy into a man. This is something you won't want to miss. It is worth the time, the resources to really help your son see who he is young and early, so that he can love, lead, serve a family and the kingdom moving forward at a young age. Please go to riseupkings.com/FFN to register you and your son. Would love to see you in the program. The Keith Cunningham certificate that I have on my wall is the most important whatever course that I've done. And so grabbing it. Let's go. Keys to the vault. So check it. It's like, and here's the thing, guys. So from that point, I went, and it was like $7,000 to buy 2 of his courses. And then here's a little different thought for you guys. I went through the course, and as I was halfway through it, I have this like big, like I kind of have this overwhelming feeling, Eric, in my gut when my son turned. I have 1 son and 4 daughters. When he turned 16, I'm like, holy smokes, like I'm responsible for this kid's success
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like he could figure it out if I was a dirtbag, but I could put him on a path that you and I may not have had. So anyways, I started the course over, and I made him sit through all like 100 hours with me over the course of a year. We counted it as part of his homeschool. The thing is even if he gets 20%, 25% of it, you know what I mean? It's like all worth it. So, my point is, you gave something to me because I saw something in you. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's like just being open to that path of learning and growing, and that it doesn't stop when you like graduate high school or college or something like this.
You bring up an interesting point, right? um, I had a complex in my 20s or whatever where, you want to save people, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
attract people into your life that are wounded in some way so that you can save them and get significance and get your ego stroked,
Hmm.
right? And then sometimes you create codependencies on people. Um, and what I've learned now is when people say things, I don't get paid, to well, actually, yeah, you do pay me, but not in this capacity, right?
Right, right.
Um, but my point is like I don't like mentor people for money,
Mm.
Um, but when somebody says, "Hey, I have this problem," or they're sharing something, or they ask a question, and then they go and do one thing, um, then you're like, "Oh, you got benefit, great." Then when they ask you for another thing, you're happy to give it.
Hmm.
Mentoring doesn't have to be like you show up on a call every Tuesday,
Right.
and review your outcomes. It's like, you can get mentoring from if you see somebody that has the results that you want, hey, like you did, what's the one thing, what's this thing, right? People love to help people avoid the suffering that they went through.
Hmm.
Like, period. I mean, I've been through some serious stuff, and it's like, I always said, if I could help just one person not go through what I went through, my life has meaning. Um,
Yeah.
and let people have that opportunity to help you because people want to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. So, I mean, I guess as guys, you're listening to this, how are you, I don't want to say using your story, but how are you allowing your story to be a benefit to others? And man, I had a guy on my podcast like a week or 2 ago, and he shared a story where I was like, it was like, dude, if that happened to me, I probably wouldn't say that out loud to anyone ever. But what was cool was the way that he shared it. It was just so like, this happened when I was 10. And and the freedom he had in sharing it was like, it doesn't define me at all. And if somebody can learn and grow from this, that's great. So I think there's such opportunity to not hide parts of our story, that there's zero reason to have shame for it. If you learned and grew from it, dude, somebody else is going through something similar or worse. So can you use your story to be a blessing and a gift to somebody? I think that's an incredible opportunity.
Thanks, man. my wife was laughing one time, and we're up in Lake Arrowhead where we got married, and we go up to that resort, and we're walking through the place, and everybody's like, Eric, how's it going? Like other guests, hey, Eric,
Yeah, that's
thanks
cool.
again, whatever. And like she didn't know, but I was down at the dock, and people would buy this stuff and take their son, their daughter fishing for like one of the
Mm.
first times, and they had trash gear, and just doing it completely wrong. And I'm judging them, right? I'm like, that's
Mm.
not going to catch any fish. And so I'd be like, hey, you mind if I show you something? They're like, sure. So I'd grab my stuff and put it on and tie it. And I'd be like, cool, cast it right over there. And then like they were getting bit. And, you know, yes, I could catch more fish. But seeing this dad that suddenly is now reeling in a fish with his kid,
Yeah.
felt absolutely amazing. So people want to be of service.
Mm.
They want to help.
Yeah, it's so funny because a lot of times I think I'll give an example. Like you're walking, so I live in Hawaii and I've realized
Mhm.
something different. So like when I lived in California, if I was walking from like at Home Depot or Costco and you saw somebody loading something in their truck, most times you just like don't make eye contact and just like walk away. Um, for whatever reason, I don't know. In Hawaii, it's like everyone's just helping each other in the parking lot. Load this, load that, unload this. And I think we have these opportunities all the time, right? Like, let me just, hey, can I put a lure on this for you or a worm or whatever it is? And it's like we think it, but we don't do it. And to me, that's like a God opportunity or a human opportunity to just be human, right? To be kind. It doesn't have to be this, like we went on a mission trip. It could literally be just these small opportunities that we see every day. And sometimes I think as we get older and as we ignore those, we see less of them because it's like, well, I'm not going to give Ned that idea because he's not going to do anything with it. And so I just feel like the whole concept of fatherhood really isn't just me having kids or you having kids. It's like, am I stepping out in this identity in the world and seeing opportunities where I can be fatherly and loving to put a lure on, to help somebody load a refrigerator, whatever. There's so many opportunities out there every day. And I just think if we started doing that, the world would just look different. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
I think part of the problem too is we don't have enough margin in our life to do it, right? We're just like so big. Oh, I like it. You disagree, which is good. That's an excuse, huh?
Yeah. Lovingly. My wife's like, who did you save today? That's what she says to me, like
Oh,
jokingly.
really?
Oh yeah. Like if
Oh.
somebody has a flat tire, I like stop and push their car. If somebody, I'm not trying to
Mm,
make myself out to sound like I'm a saint because I'm far from it, but it's like, it
you're
just,
looking for that.
it's the right, I'll share a little something if you don't mind. It's, a
Please.
couple minutes. I realized something, and there was a book, Ego is the Enemy,
Mm-hmm.
and loved it. And then I was at a point in my life where it was when I was doing the Keith Cunningham events with him. And I realized that my business was growing, but not as much.
Mm.
So then I was like, well, how do I pull myself out of my business so that my business runs without me? Right. And I started to study biochemicals. Don't know how much you guys have studied this, but if you could study like one thing, yeah, I would highly recommend this. Everything that you do is based off of biochemicals in your body. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and cortisol, right? Are the five big ones.
Yes.
The so if you understand that you're doing a behavior, you're doing it to satisfy most likely one of those four.
Hmm.
So then you realize that those biochemicals are more addicting than heroin. So you're doing certain things to get those biochemicals, irregardless of the outcome. Whether you win or lose in gambling, it produces the same amount of dopamine. So it's the behavior that your body keeps doing. So you go, okay, if you try and change your behavior, but you don't get that dose, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, if you don't get that, your body will go back to whatever that negative behavior was. So why I'm saying that is when you are looking to change any aspect of your life, you want to sit there and go, how am I replacing it? So when I was stepping
Mm.
away from my solar company, I was like, I need to replace it with something else. So then rather than me posting a big deal I got on Facebook or, whatever, and getting unhealthy, potentially ego driven biochemicals, I was like, how can I go have more fun? So instead I was posting about me skydiving or taking cooking lessons or me volunteering or doing something else, right? I don't even know if I posted about business on my Facebook in like 8 years or something. And it's because I want to put discipline for me to get those biochemicals from healthy activities,
Yeah.
not to get
Yeah.
lured into other ones. Um, so that has been a huge bedrock for me as it relates to like behavioral change is just knowing like if I don't get that serotonin from significance, if I don't get it in
Hmm.
a healthy way, I'm going to get it in an unhealthy way.
So yeah, your body is going to pursue those things, but you get to decide how you're going to pursue those things, right? It's kind of like, or it's just going to happen to you, right? Um, which goes back to you commenting on stopping drinking. What's funny is I drank like twice in high school, and then I didn't drink until I was like 34, 35 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's been like the last 10 years that I drink, and I could kind of take it or leave it, but it's like once you start drinking, there's always a social reason to drink, right? There's always like, because I'll be
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, I'm gonna do a 90 days fitness. It's like, well, then I'm gonna be in Hawaii next week for this event, or then my friend's coming from out of town in 3 weeks. Like there's all these little reasons why you want a Modelo in your hand or whatever it is you like. For you and guys who kind of do that is like this. What's the shift you saw in yourself when, for example, because drinking is a big one, you chose to just stop pursuing that altogether?
Drinking was a very unhealthy habit that let me have a lot of fun in my
Mm,
life in my younger years. But then I remember I used to do yard work, right? And
mhm.
so I go out there and do yard work and organize and clean things, and my wife would like hand me a beer every hour. So I'm part Irish. I think I have a weird gene where alcohol doesn't metabolize the same way. I can drink way more than most people in the past. So I would just like have a sculpin, have a beer every hour more or less. She just handed it to me, over a sandwich every few hours. And then whether it was 1 or 10, I would wake up the next day feeling inflamed. And so then as I
Mm,
started to learn about the body, that almost all root causes of diseases, except for a few, is inflammation, right? So if inflammation causes the majority of heart disease, stroke, cancer, whatever, I was like,
yep.
okay, how do I reduce inflammation? And so when I cut out alcohol, I said I can't do anymore because of my neck. I have so many broken
Uh,
bones and injuries and everything all throughout my body, my whole body, that I just got to the point where I was like, it hurts too much.
mhm,
And then I get a little short with the wife, or I get a little short with the kids, and then I was a little cloudy during a meeting, or whatever the case may be. It
mhm,
just affected me more the older I got. And then I said, okay, this is not serving me in my outcomes anymore. So it's got to go. And then
mhm.
it was like overnight,
Yeah.
cold turkey, just done.
Hmm. Love it. Yeah, it's helpful. It is funny. There is something about after like mowing the lawn that it's nice to have like a cold beer. Uh, I've been drinking the Athletics, the non-alcoholic beers. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that those probably because of they probably cause a similar inflammation anyways. So I don't know that it's necessarily shifting the carbs that you're bringing in your body, the unhealthy
I
carbs,
don't
but
know.
who knows? Okay, so check it. You had a story about taking your son fishing, and I just thought this was such a remarkable story for dads to hear. And so I'd love for you to share it.
So I hate to keep repeating myself, but everything in my brain comes down to my outcomes because I'm very deliberate and I really like think about how I want something to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I love, I've been wanting to buy a boat for the past 8 years. And I got to the point where I was taking the kids like freshwater fishing and they were having a good time, right? But then I really wanted to just get them involved in saltwater fishing. Saltwater fishing is entirely different. The fish are always bigger. You're pulling in sea monsters sometimes, and it is just like a blast, right? You're out in the ocean. It just hits different. And so we've been going to Cabo once or twice a year for quite a while. And then as the kids started getting older, I told Vanessa, I was like, "Hey, what do you think if I take a little Eric?" And she's like, "Yeah, if you think he's up to it." And I was like, "I don't know." I
And
was like, "I don't know how it's
how
going to
old
work
was
out."
he?
I think he was like 7,
Okay, perfect.
7 years
Yeah.
old. And so I was like, well, what's worst going to happen? I just wanted to have a good time. I don't care if we catch big fish, little fish. I don't care. That was my outcome. I just wanted to have fun.
Mm.
And so we go out there and I meet up with Ricardo, Captain Ricardo, and we start taking out of the marina. And so we're about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes in to get to the spot. And he starts saying, like, I miss my mommy. Right. I'm like, ah, shoot, here we go. And
Mm-hmm.
he's not missing his mommy. He's scared or like whatever's
Mm.
going on because he wants that certainty that his mother brings. So then, he's like, I miss my mom, I miss my mom, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay. I was like, no problem, buddy. I was like, why don't we turn the boat around? And I look at Captain Ricardo and I go, hey man, let's turn the boat around. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, he's not feeling it. I said we should probably start heading back. And so I did the, he knew we turned the boat around. So that was at least enough in his mind to check off that we're going back. So then I said, hey, we're just going to throw a little fish off the back, see if we catch something while we go home. Is that okay? He's like, yeah, sure. So we just slow trolled, a live bait. And I swear to you, the second that bait hit the water, like 6 feet from the boat, a 52-pound wahoo just destroyed it, kicked water everywhere on us. And and before I did that, I said to Captain Ricardo, I said something like, let's say a prayer to the fishing gods, something like joking. And so he starts laughing and then he tosses it in and it was just boom. And I truly felt that God is a
Mm-hmm.
little nicer when, you're kind to your kids, like if you're
Mm.
doing something that like, okay, I love fishing. I love it. It's not even like a normal thing for me. Um, it's an addiction that is healthy and feeds people. Um, but at the same time, I was willing to give up the thing that I love the most and look forward to all
Yeah.
year on that once a year trip to Mexico just to make my son happy. Um, and I think that, you get rewarded for fathers being kind to sons. Um,
Mm.
and so he was there and then we started going and we caught two more fish almost instantly. As soon as we put it back in the water, just boom, boom. So now instead we had a photo, of us with some fish at the dock and he was super happy and had a great time. Then the next time we went out, caught a bunch of big fish again. And I didn't know this, but I don't know if his mom did it for him or something, printed out a picture of me and him with all the fish hanging
Mm.
across a bar. And he carried it around with him and he was showing it to everybody that he could show it
Oh.
to for like months. And I didn't know this. And then I was like, what do you mean you have a photo of us in your backpack? Oh, because he was switching backpacks because we got him a new backpack. And so then he was like, oh, yeah, I've shown everybody. And it just lit me up. It just made me feel amazing.
Mm.
So,
Dude, here's the things here's what I want to highlight from this story for guys to hear. Because I think sometimes, because the disclaimer is sometimes our kids can overreact and be babies, and then we can, we don't want to give into that. But that's not what happened here. Uh, the things that I noticed is two things. First off, you set a outcome and an expectation for this, because I could see myself like, I can't wait to like go out on this boat for 5, 6, 7 hours with my son and do this. And then as soon as he doesn't want to do it, then me be like, F this sucks. Okay. Like me get triggered and upset.
oh,
But
yeah.
I think,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And that would be understandable, right? You think about you're paying to be out here, you're leaving early, you're doing all these things to accommodate a 7-year-old already. And you're like trying to treat him like an older kid, which he desperately wants. But what you did is you set an outcome that was easy to win, right? Your outcome was fun. Whereas like my outcome could be this idealistic, we're going to catch a 52-pound fish. And so as soon as it doesn't happen, I get derailed, right? So I think dads, when we're planning the camp trip or the Disney trip or whatever the trip might be, to set like a winnable outcome. Like we can win this relatively easily. Because then you're happy, everybody's happy. Then you said that you chose to be kind to your son. It wasn't about like, frickin' this sucks, I'm never bringing you out here again, let's turn the boat around, right? You're like, you were working on kindness, and you saw and felt that God honored the kindness, although it wasn't what you wanted. And so dads, those are two things I think we could take into everything, is like, am I setting it up where it's easy for me to win? And am I being kind when things don't go the way that I expect them to? Because dude, if you have a kid and if you have a wife, things are not going to go the way that you plan them in your head. And truly, it's like I use this example. It's like if you forget the tent poles, that could be the best thing that happened to you. It's like if you can
Mhm.
allow that to be part of your story of the weekend camping. And like you guys, the best thing that happened was you caught this enormous fish that if you were pissed and were out there for 8 hours for the day and forced your kid to do it, you may not have, probably wouldn't have, and the whole thing would have been
Mm.
missed. So a lot to be gained from that. Um, okay, you have time for like one more question?
Yeah, whatever you need.
Okay. All right. I spanked my kids.
Mhm.
Not all of them, because I could think like it worked on some and it didn't work on others. And it was pretty far and few between. But I think that at the time I was like 3 jobs, broke. I don't know that I was thinking like I was a good dad, right? Doing what I knew to do, but I don't know that it necessarily reflected on should I or shouldn't I be doing this thing. Um, and so I wouldn't say it was like a big part of my parenting or a small part of my parenting. It was just a thing that happened and whatever. As I haven't really reflected on if I would do it or if I would recommend it. But when you brought up spanking, I was like, this is probably a thing that dads with little kids are wrestling with and thinking through. So maybe you could just share your perspective on it, as dudes might be thinking about it. Like, how did it work for you, or how didn't it work for you, and what was kind of the result or conclusion you came to?
So my quick answer is I don't think it's effective in 99% of the situations.
Hmm.
Um, I was I was abused when I was younger, mostly mentally and emotionally, but
Mm,
also physically. And um, but I always said like, God, I wish I had somebody that just disciplined me the right way when I was growing up because maybe I
right.
would have been not such a troublemaker. Um, and you always try and like make up for your shortcomings with your kids or consciously or unconsciously. And
Right.
when my son was born, and he was a handful. I mean, like just really brutally hard. Like he would
Mm,
cry and scream and puke. He'd get so angry and upset and just like, and then it was just, it had me at my wits end. And I
mm,
consider myself to be a pretty strong guy. It was just, and so then I started spanking him when he was young, and um, you know, it upset my wife, but then
mm,
we would talk about it and be like, well, people used to spank their kids. You create all this cause and effect in everything in life that may not, it's causation versus correlation, right?
mm-hmm,
So, like, kids these days, aren't as disciplined and they're hitting people with their bikes and doing all this stuff. Well, maybe they need spanking, you know?
mm,
Um, and so I kind of thought, like, okay, well, I don't want my kids to turn out as disobedient as I was. So, therefore, I'll spank them. And it was also like a last resort thing. I just couldn't handle it anymore.
mm-hmm,
And then you get reinforcement. My kid's preschool is faith based Christian, and then I went through with the headmaster and I talked it over, and they were like, "Yeah, we agree. You should spank your kids." And you talk with other parents, they're like, "We spank our kids." And then you know, I just it was getting bad between my wife and I, because
mm,
she was really against it, and I probably took it too far a few times, because I'm just like I don't know what to do, and I was
mm-hmm,
just at a total loss. And then I could tell that my son was getting more and more distant from me, and he wasn't coming up to me, he wasn't loving on me, he wasn't
mm,
whatever. I could just feel it, right? And then, my wife, you asked me what the best resource is for a father, and mine is my wife,
mm-hmm,
by far. She has been phenomenal in so many ways, and she's a wonderful mirror, and hey, this isn't working or this or that, and so she had said that like she's totally against it. She thought she was okay with it in the beginning, then she was totally against it. And I needed to change my results. I'm like, okay, this is
mm,
not working. This is not getting my child to do the behavior that I want them or not do the behavior I don't want them. It's not working. So then you have to be humble enough to say, look, I need to change my
yeah,
approach. And that's tough for a lot of fathers. And so then I was looking online, and I'm a seeker of knowledge, and I found Raising Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I forget the author's name. Um, and I found Raising Lions, and it's from this gentleman that worked with really bad kids. And by bad, I mean just like acting out, violent, all different types of problems. And I just I turned it on, and I turned my car toward the mountains, and I drove into the mountains and drove for like 6 hours
Mm.
just listening to this book. And by the time I came back, I was like, that's it. Like, I'm going to do my best not to spank him. And I haven't been perfect, but as the years went on, it was like nothing. I think I went years without spanking him again.
Mm.
Um, and the premise of the book is that children hate to be bored. They hate to be isolated. If you're isolated, you're away from the tribe. It feels more dangerous when you're young, potentially, like things that are baked into us from evolution. um, and being out in the wild instead of being in cities in our own safe home. So they don't want to be separated. That's the worst thing to them. So when you spank or whatever, you might get angry. You might feel totally certain that you're right in the moment. This is the polar opposite. You have to literally just center yourself. Try not to overreact. If any of you fathers have a problem with that, instead of going to level 10, go to a 9 next time,
Mm.
and then an 8, and then a 7. Don't try and flip a light switch and be perfect, 'cause then you'll judge yourself. But just do a little better. And then catch yourself as soon as you can to make your response less. Look at your child and tell them, I've asked you not to do this. You continue to do it. We're going to take a break upstairs. And then or wherever. And then you take them up to their room. They could scream, they could cry, they could throw a fit. You maybe have to carry them. You set them down. You're going to take a break until you can calm yourself. And then we're going to talk. And then just walk out of the room. And just you're more certain and committed that the child is going to take a break and calm themselves. And now this creates a pattern in them of coming to neutral, because if they're highly,
Mm-hmm.
emotional,
Yep.
their prefrontal cortex shuts down, the thinking part of their brain, because they're emotional. So you think you're telling them logical things. They're deaf. They can't
Yeah.
understand
They
what
can't even hear it. Yeah.
you're saying. So you just get them to that neutral place, and then you guide their behavior after that. But you don't change their behavior during the moment, during
Mm-hmm.
disobedience. And that's been in my I wouldn't have figured that out unless my wife was like, this isn't working and you're not gonna have a good relationship with your son. And
Mm.
so that changed my behavior, and then I found that book, and it's been light years different. It was like a light switch. And I didn't want to
Wow.
spank him when things happen because it works so well the new way.
Right.
Um
Right.
And I spanked my 7-year-old once because he freaking hit my kid in the jacuzzi with a water gun and cracked his tooth. I'm like, oh, you're gonna spank it. Like, that's it. You're gonna, so what are you gonna do?
More of a tool, more of a tool that's used at an appropriate time versus like the only tool in my toolbox. Um,
Correct.
I mean, Eric, the things that I hear that just want guys to pull out is one, um, it, it wasn't working, and instead of being like this kid's broken or whatever, right? There's a
Yes.
problem with him. I want to shift something that I'm doing. Like that's the only thing I can adjust, right? And then taking time to go find a resource, find a book, go learn and grow in something. So a huge, like, dudes, are you growing? Are you growing in the things that are most important to you? I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, good for you. You are, but keep leaning into that. And then the other thing, and maybe you could just speak to this, but I think many of us men feel like our wife is a broken record, annoying, bitching at me. And you use the terminology,
They're right.
she's been a.
No.
you,
Bring a little
yes,
levity.
but you said that she's been a good mirror for you, right? And so, sure, in the
Mhm.
moment, do I want to hear my wife tell me X, Y, or Z? No. And am I offended in the moment? Sure. But how do you how have you shifted to walk away and go, okay, there are things that are annoying, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna just externalize that she's bitching at me. I'm gonna go, okay, where is the truth in this? Where can I make adjustments? And you said the word humble yourself, right? So how have you practically humbled yourself to hear her and not shut her out, if you will?
So I think if we start at the top, there's an old saying that when a man marries a woman, he never wants her to change. When a woman marries a man, she starts trying to change him from day one, right? And
That's so funny. Yeah.
there's a lot of truth to that, and at least in my marriage. And the challenge with that is you can look at it as like she's attacking me or she's trying to help me become the best version of myself.
Mm,
Now, if it's entirely for a selfish purpose, right, or manipulative, be
of
careful.
course. Yeah.
But if it's like, hey, Eric, you're a slob. I know you're the crazy inventor type. I know that like you're off in some other galaxy when you're sitting there thinking, and so there's crap everywhere, but it drives her crazy. So she shared with me, like, hey, I am it bothers her a lot when things are not in place. Like a lot. And
Mm,
then I said, okay, thank you for that feedback. So then I take her feedback and then I try and find supporting evidence on why this is a good idea, not just from her. So then it was like, oh, the cognitive load of seeing all these things reduces your intelligence and decision making. I'm like, cool. Now I have two good reasons, you know, to not be a pig. Um, and there's plenty of examples. Um, I think that a lot of times the problem is one of my favorite sayings is you don't give 50-50 in a partnership, right? Which is a marriage.
mhm.
You give 100 and 100. And if you're asking her to change or she's asking you to change and the other party's not being open at least to like, hey, this affects me in a negative way. I'm not crazy about this. Would you be open to trying this different approach, right? Um, if both parties aren't willing to like try and become better versions of themselves, it's very difficult because then one just feels like they're
Yeah.
being attacked.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's more having expectations that you guys are talking about this, right? It's clear that you have conversations about these types of things. And so it's like open communication versus just a bunch of unsaid expectations, which leads to frustration with each other, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean it's 100% timing too. Don't do it. Like don't do it if somebody's not in a positive mental state,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
if suddenly she's cooking something and you're like, God, why can't you just cook more like your mother or my mother? It's like, whoa, okay, this is good. Maybe you give a
Timing.
recipe that your mother used to make that you love, like it really does come
That
down to
also sounds
approach.
ballsy.
I would. I don't think I ever have though, actually. Because I cook my mother's recipes, but no,
Uh,
but
man, Eric, so much great stuff, dude. I really like getting to know you at this level has been really great. I've learned a lot about you. I've learned some things that I'd like to implement myself as a father. Thank you for taking the time to share with me and with my listeners. Um, dude, any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
don't be so hard on yourself. You know,
Mm,
um, it's amazing what you can achieve in years. But if
mm,
you try and do it all, in one day, just do your best, you know, and tomorrow try and do a little bit better. And I've just
mhm,
learned from my biological father, having to let go of some stuff that a friend shared with me, that happened is that, he asked me, he said, did he do his best? Because my biological father wasn't there when I was growing up.
mm,
There was some stuff around all that. And he said, did he do his best? And I said, no, he didn't. And he said, are you sure? So then dude was amazing, mindset guy. And he was just like, do you think if he had better resources that he would have done better? I was like, yes. I said, so he did the best he could with the resources and whatever he had and his
yeah,
growing up and whatever. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like I'll let some energy away from that. And I think if you're doing your best, it removes the judgment from everybody else as well as from yourself. Some days are better than others, right? I don't get done everything that's on my never ending list, but it's
yeah,
like, okay, how can I do a little better? And if my best isn't good enough, who can I learn from? What can I do
Hmm.
to get better, right? And then if you just stick to that over a period of time, like, man, I got a pretty wonderful life right now, and it's just because
Hmm.
I keep trying to just do a little better. So
No, dude, I love it. Super encouraging. Well, my friend, dude, blessings to you, your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your businesses, the impact that you have, dude. Keep being yourself, looking for opportunities just to be kind out in the world. So I thank you for this time. Thank you for your flexibility on it. And I look forward to continuing to get to know you over the years.
yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
All
Until
right,
next time.
great.
What an incredible conversation. There were so many nuggets that I wrote down on a little piece of paper as I was going through this. And it's the little things. It's having breakfast 9 years in a row, or, it's putting the kids to bed. I mean, just those two things alone are areas that you and I, for the most part, have some sort of control or influence or opportunity. I really appreciate the way that he shows up with intentionality, being deliberate with his day. I mean, a couple of the words that really stuck out were being deliberate, creating certainty. I mean, if we're looking for these big aha rocks, I mean, these are little things that take a great amount of work and introspective time to cultivate this type of man who has really what it comes down to is a bit of ability to not allow your inner world to have a negative impact on your outer world. And what that means is, like, are you and I, like, as we're here right now, are we doing the work on who we are so that we can show up the way that we want for those that have been placed in our care? So kudos to Eric. He's doing the work. I love it. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time. If you haven't written a review, please do so on whatever podcast platform you are on, and share this with a friend. Thank you. Much love. Talk to you next week.